The morning air was brisk, tinged with a distinctive chill that signals autumn's full arrival in England. I set off along a winding path into an ancient forest, leaves crunching beneath my boots, their colours vivid against the damp earth. Burnished gold, coppery orange, and deep red, mingling in a glorious tapestry. The sun filtered through the thinning canopy, scattering dappled light onto the moss and bracken, and highlighting the gentle mists that lingered in the hollows. As I walked deeper between the ancient oaks and beeches, the soundscape shifted. There was a gentle rustling overhead as squirrels darted from branch to branch, gathering their winter stores. Occasionally, a brisk breeze would dislodge a flurry of leaves, sending them drifting in a lazy spiral to the ground. Somewhere in the distance, the melodic trill of a robin echoed, a cheerful counterpoint to the season's slowing pace. The air carried the earthy aroma of damp wood, decaying leaves, a scent both invigorating and comforting. Mushrooms sprouted in clusters along the tree roots, their delicate forms adding to the forest's autumnal display. Every so often, I paused to admire a patch of ferns, still stubbornly green amongst the fading foliage, or to watch a family of deer silent and poised, weaving through the undergrowth. The forest was alive with subtle changes, a quiet celebration of nature's cycles. I marveled at the way the light shifted with the moving clouds, how the landscape seemed to glow in the late afternoon, as though lit from within. The walk, though simple, felt profound, a gentle reminder of the beauty that unfurled in the spaces between seasons. I could feel my body relaxing as I walked, the tightness in my shoulders and my neck loosening with every step I took. My walk started to feel less like a casual stroll and more like a journey from one dimension to another. The awareness of my physical body gradually faded, as if into a mist, replaced by a growing knowledge that I was about to discover a new level of being. One that perhaps had always been there, just out of my reach. The quality of the filtered sunlight had shifted, taken on a shimmering translucency where the trees appeared as if behind a gossamer veil. Ahead of me on the path was a small wooden footbridge. I had not noticed it before. I reached the footbridge and hesitated. The forest on the far side looked the same as the forest on this side. I placed my hand on the aged wooden railing, worn smooth by countless hands before me, and I crossed the bridge. I stepped off the bridge on the other side and looked around me. The forest did look the same, but I had changed. I felt a clarity of mind that I'd never experienced before. I heard the bird song. I saw the surroundings in high definition. A squirrel paused on a low branch a few feet from me, tilted his little head, and observed me calmly. His body was relaxed as he sat back on his haunches and nibbled on something grasped between his hands. In this place, I realized there was no fear. Was this some kind of paradise, where the lion lays down with the lamb and all are at peace? I looked behind me, but the bridge was no longer there. There was no going back. I heard the voice say to me, "Turn your gaze within. The answers you seek are right inside you. They've been there all along." It took me a few moments to realize that the voice came not from some mysterious outside force, but from my own mind. I felt as if I was hovering next to the spot where my body was standing, looking over at myself. For the first time in my life, I was on the outside, looking in. I was for a brief moment in that magical place between reality and somewhere else, able to see myself as others saw me. The first thing that struck me, I have grown old. In the world outside the forest, my mind's eye sees me as an inconsequential little nobody, inferior to the older, more experienced people around me. In the magical realm of the forest, though, the realization starts to seep into my consciousness. I am one of those older people. Yet I don't feel more experienced. I don't feel more worthy of respect. At that stage, if anything, I still felt less at home in my skin than ever before. I continued my walk, gradually becoming accustomed to the feeling of walking beside myself. In the process, I was becoming infinitely more comfortable with the person I was seeing, more comfortable with myself. It was a golden opportunity to ask myself some questions without knowing what the answer would be before I asked. I had not realized that I had so many important questions to ask myself. Am I happy? Do I feel that my life so far has been worthwhile? What would I have done differently? And probably the most important of all, what do I want to change moving forward? I lost track of time, so engrossed was I in truly engaging with myself for the first time. My senses seemed heightened. I heard rustles in the undergrowth that I would not normally even notice. But most importantly of all, started to like my own company. And it occurred to me that maybe, just maybe, other people did as well. I answered all my questions directly and honestly, and I realized that I was actually easy to talk to, a pretty good listener. I admitted to myself that I was not truly happy. But the reason for that was a little surprising. It didn't lay in outside influences, in what other people did, in the stress of my job. Those factors all contributed hugely to my emotional state on a daily basis, but they did not make me innately unhappy. No. The source of my unhappiness was because for most of my life I had disliked myself quite intensely without really knowing why. I had assumed I was not a good person, that I should be better, that others were judging me, finding me wanting in every way. But I found out that's simply not true. There are people who dislike me, of course there are, but the importance I attach to their opinions, that's entirely up to me. The only opinion I really need to be concerned with is my own. As I walked deeper into the forest, purpose became the focus of my conversation with myself. Has my life been worthwhile? How do we even evaluate that? At first, the reply came as another question. Has the world been a better place at the end of each day because of me? Because of something I did or didn't do? Something I said or didn't say? It sounds simple, but it really isn't. Because that way of looking at purpose places the onus completely on the effect we have on those around us. Sometimes, I discovered, purpose can be inherent. Purpose can affect no one but me. I debated for some time with myself about this one, but I eventually concluded that the human condition precludes us from getting it right all the time. And that's okay. I get it wrong many times. Some mistakes I've been able to correct, others not. Some areas of judgment affected those around me, others affected only me, and both were of equal importance. The process of growth is what really matters. And we cannot grow if we do not forgive ourselves for getting it wrong. If we do not accept the mistake for what it is, a lesson. And the real crunch, if we do not learn from the mistake and do better next time. If we can do that, purpose will naturally follow. I saw a small clearing in the forest up ahead, where a rare patch of sunlight nourished the forest floor, allowing the grass to grow thick and luxuriant. The clearing was occupied by a lone red deer busily nibbling on the tall grass. She heard my footsteps and lifted her head, pointing her nose towards me with her ears pricked. For a moment I expected her to bound away, but in this parallel world I was inhabiting, she just cocked her head on one side as she regarded me curiously, decided I was no threat, and carried on munching. I now had the decision to make. Do I walk closer and risk frightening her? Or do I find another way around the clearing? Maybe go back at this point? I wasn't ready to go back. But as it happened, she seemed to understand my hesitation and took a few steps to the left, leaving the path clear. I walked on as slowly as I could until I was nearly alongside her. But she still carried on eating, as if on some level she knew I wouldn't harm her. I stopped a short distance from her, and she turned her head and looked straight at me, her ears gently moving backwards and forwards, and her jaws chewing busily. She managed to make that grass sound so delicious that I was almost tempted to take a mouthful myself. A feeling of peace settled over the clearing as we stood close together. For that moment, our worlds met and joined in tranquil harmony. She turned calmly back to her meal, and I resumed my walk, grateful for the opportunity she had given me to share her world for those few unforgettable moments. The feeling of peace did not leave me as I walked on. I think it never has. She gave me a gift in those few seconds that I am still carrying with me to this day. I walked on, following the leaf-strewn mossy path between the tall beech trees, and resumed my conversation with myself. I asked myself what I would have done differently with my life. Another surprising reply was in store for me. It's not important. Regrets over what might have been are a monumental waste of time and emotional energy. Reflecting on the path my life has taken, I realized that it was very different to what I had expected it to take as a young person. As was commonplace in those days, my career path was chosen for me by my parents. I had different dreams, but they didn't matter then, and they matter even less now. What matters is the way in which I have walked the road mapped out for me. Have I done so with integrity? Have I done my best? My reply was honest and a little brutal. Not always. There were times I felt completely overwhelmed, and there were many, many times I faltered, gripped by a crippling fear of failure, and fettered by the excessive importance I attached to what other people may have been thinking. I had not yet developed the wisdom to understand that most of the time other people are too busy thinking about themselves to be bothered with what I'm doing. The realization that what I have done in the past does not matter one iota was incredibly liberating. Confining those experiences to memories, good or bad, robs them of their power to cripple or indeed their ability to mislead. Past success is every bit as fickle a master as past failure. The value of both exists only in the wisdom gained and lessons learned from each experience. Then, leave them in the past where they belong and move on. The air seemed lighter and brighter around me the further I walked and the better I got to know myself. The yellows and reds of the fallen leaves I was disturbing with my footsteps had taken on a clean brightness that perfectly mirrored the clarifying catharsis my mind was undergoing. Plump cream and brown mushrooms scattered among the fallen leaves alongside the well-trodden forest path peered up at me as I passed. The last of the season's mellow flowers peeking shyly from their palmate leaf beds in the undergrowth. I looked ahead to where the path disappeared around the bend as I pondered my final question to myself. A squirrel scampered across from one side to the other, grasping a prize in one paw, busy with his preparations for the winter. It led me to think about the preparations I would need to make before I would be ready to return to my humdrum existence. Where to from here? What do I need to change so I'm able to make the most of my remaining time allocation? The answers were very different to anything I would have thought before I took this magical forest walk. And I knew that implementing them was going to take effort, courage. There were two main themes that emerged as I walked along beside my body, conducting a heated debate with myself over the finer points of self-actualization. The first theme: nothing material matters enough to break a meaningful relationship down. The material is transient. Friendship, love, spirituality. These things last for eternity. Putting this theme into practice was and still is challenging. The trick for me turned out to be pausing. Stop and ask myself, for each minor dispute or angry retort from a loved one, is this a hill worth dying on? Most of the time, if not all of the time, the answer is no. The next challenge comes down to achieving a mutually agreeable outcome to disputes, which is not the same as giving in every time. Key for me was approach, not execution. Saying less and removing myself from the situation worked for me. I still find that I have to stop and turn away sometimes. Old habits die hard. But I think I'm getting better at walking away from material disputes that matter little. An agreement can always be reached with those we care about if we are willing to be brave and work at it. Brings me on to the next key change I needed to make. I needed to learn that only the people I care about actually matter. Stop trying to make everyone like me. I have the right to choose my people carefully. Not everyone in my circle is going to be deserving of my care. I was always the worst kind of people pleaser. Well, what kind is that, you may say? I would say yes to demands when I should have said no, then simmer with hidden resentment afterwards. Having said that, I found out that it's not that hard to work out who is and who isn't my person. The trick for me was simply this: stay true to myself. Speak, act, and feel in a way that is authentic, the true reflection of the essence that dwells within me, rather than saying what I think someone else wants to hear. When I know that I'm doing that, and then I can just sit back and observe. There'll be people who like what they see and hear, and there will be people who don't. Question answered. The people who don't, by extension then, don't share my values and outlooks, and therefore are not my people. I don't need to care if they like me or not. I can remove the stress of having to seek their approval, because they're not my people. The last change I decided I needed to make was to learn this. I am allowed to take care of my own needs without feeling guilty about it. Like many people, I'd long believed that it was selfish to take time for me. But it really is not. I was walking along thinking about all the ways I could make my own welfare a priority, when in the distance a small wooden bridge came into view. My steps faltered for a moment as I realized that once I crossed that little bridge, I would be back in the normal world, back living inside my own head. Would my senses still be as sharp? Would the pressures of my stressful day-to-day life take their toll? Would the peace and clarity I found in this magical patch of forest be chased away? Or could I find a way to keep them? From somewhere far outside myself, I heard a voice say, "That is entirely up to you." I crossed the rustic wooden bridge, slowly and deliberately. The forest stayed the same. My perceptions stayed the same. My senses remained heightened, but there was no one beside me. I walked on towards the edge of the woodland, each step making me more determined to take the revelations I'd experienced and use them to make a real difference in my life from that moment on. As I emerged from the woodland, cheeks flushed and mind refreshed, I glanced back at the winding path. The wooden footbridge had disappeared back to the magical realm from whence it had come. The forest stood serene and timeless, ready to embrace the coming winter, yet for now resplendent in its autumn glory. I realized that I could take the magic with me if I chose to. It would not be easy, but it was in my power to make the changes I would need to keep the magic alive. It will take sacrifice of the material, and only time will tell if I have what it takes to live my life as it was meant to be lived. To maintain the peace, to maintain the clarity that I found on a simple walk in the forest in autumn.